The unexpected arrival. John Carter never asked for an alien maid. When the government officer knocked on his door that morning, he thought it was just another routine check. Ever since he left the military, he had been living a quiet life, avoiding trouble. But trouble had a way of finding him. The officer, a tall man in a dark suit, handed John a tablet and said, "Sign here. Your government-assigned caretaker has arrived." John frowned. "Caretaker? I didn't ask for one." The officer didn't blink. "It's a special program. You qualify. No cost to you." That sounded suspicious. Free things from the government usually came with strings attached. But John was curious. He glanced at the sleek black van parked in front of his house. The back door opened, and out stepped something not human. She was tall, nearly 6 feet, with smooth gray skin and 4 arms. Her glowing blue eyes scanned the area like a machine, but her movements were fluid, graceful. She wore a simple black jumpsuit with a small insignia on her chest. Her long dark hair was tied back, giving her a strict, professional look. The officer cleared his throat. "This is Zaira. She will handle housework, cooking, and basic maintenance. She will also provide security if needed." John crossed his arms. "Security from what?" The officer ignored the question. "Sign the document." John hesitated. This was insane. A personal alien maid. A security unit. He didn't trust it. But the moment he thought about refusing, the officer gave him a look that made it clear this wasn't a request. Sighing, John pressed his thumb on the tablet. The officer nodded, turned around, and left without another word. The black van drove off, leaving him alone with the strange alien woman standing in his yard. Zaira tilted her head slightly. "Shall I begin cleaning?" John ran a hand through his short brown hair. "Yeah, I guess. Just don't break anything." She walked past him, moving smoothly, almost like a shadow. John followed her inside, still trying to process what just happened. Something isn't right. At first, Zaira acted like any normal maid, if normal maids could move at superhuman speed. She swept the floor in seconds. She wiped the kitchen counter with machine-like precision. She even repaired the broken light in the hallway without asking. But John noticed something strange. Zaira wasn't just cleaning. She was scanning everything. Her glowing blue eyes flickered as if recording data. When she touched objects, tiny symbols appeared on her fingertips, like she was analyzing their structure. John leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "You don't talk much, do you?" Zaira didn't look up from dusting the bookshelf. "Talking is unnecessary for my task." "Right. And what exactly is your task?" She paused, turning her glowing gaze toward him. "To maintain your home. To ensure your safety." John narrowed his eyes. "Safety from what?" There was a brief silence. Then Zaira simply said, "Unknown threats." John didn't like that answer. He wasn't paranoid, but he had spent enough years in the military to know when something was off. The government didn't just hand out advanced alien maids to random civilians. There had to be a reason. But Zaira wasn't giving him any answers. The midnight surprise. That night, John couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet. Before Zaira arrived, he lived alone. He was used to the silence. But now, something felt different. He turned over in bed, staring at the ceiling. Maybe he was overthinking things. Maybe this was just some weird government program, testing human-alien integration or whatever. Then he heard it. A faint sound. A whisper of movement inside his room. John's military instincts kicked in. He didn't move, didn't make a sound. He kept his breathing steady, pretending to be asleep. But his mind was racing. Someone was in his room. Slowly, he turned his head. Zaira was standing in the corner, completely still, watching him. John's heart pounded. He sat up quickly. "What the hell are you doing?" Zaira didn't flinch. Her glowing blue eyes remained locked on him. "I am observing." "Observing what?" She tilted her head slightly. Your breathing. Your stress levels. Your surroundings. John swung his legs over the bed, now fully awake. That's creepy as hell. Don't do that. Ziara didn't move. I must ensure your safety. John exhaled sharply. From what? You keep saying that, but you won't tell me anything. For the first time, Ziara hesitated. A flicker of something, an emotion, passed through her face. Then, in a calm, steady voice, she said, I am here to protect you. John stared at her. The way she said it wasn't comforting. It was a warning. More than just a maid. John Carter couldn't sleep after that. Ziara's words echoed in his head. I am here to protect you. From what? He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint sounds of Ziara moving around the house. She didn't sleep, didn't rest. Every now and then, he heard soft mechanical clicks, like hidden servos adjusting inside her body. Was she even fully organic? His gut told him something wasn't right. The government never gave anything away for free, let alone an advanced alien caretaker. This wasn't about housework. The watching eyes. The next morning, John acted normal. He made coffee, stretched, and sat at the kitchen table, watching Ziara move through the house. She was too efficient. Every action was precise, calculated, like a soldier scanning for threats. He tested her. John grabbed a plate, accidentally dropping it. Before it could shatter, Ziara caught it mid-air, without looking. Reflexes like that aren't normal, he muttered. Ziara placed the plate on the table. Efficiency is part of my function. John exhaled, rubbing his forehead. Cut the robotic answers. You're not just a maid, are you? Ziara tilted her head slightly. That information is classified. John tensed. He wasn't imagining things. Ziara wasn't just here to clean. She was monitoring him, studying him. He glanced toward the window. Across the street, a black sedan was parked. Same one as yesterday. Someone was watching the house. John clenched his jaw. Stay here. I'll be back. The men in black. John stepped outside, casually walking down the driveway toward the parked car. As soon as he got close, the tinted window rolled down. Two men sat inside. Both wore black suits, black sunglasses, and had the same blank expression. Their skin looked too smooth, their posture too stiff. Government? No, something else. John leaned against the car. You've been sitting here a while. Lost. The man in the driver's seat didn't blink. Go back inside, Mr. Carter. John's fingers curled into fists. He wasn't easily intimidated. You want to tell me why the hell the government sent me an alien maid? The second man turned his head slightly. His movements were unnaturally slow, like a machine processing the action before executing it. You were not meant to receive her. John's stomach dropped. Before he could respond, the driver reached into his coat. John reacted on instinct. He lunged back just as the man pulled out a sleek, metallic device that didn't look human-made. The barrel glowed with a faint blue light. Not a gun. A weapon. Target acquired, the man said. Eliminate. The escape. John dove backward as a pulse of energy hissed through the air, scorching the pavement where he had been standing. He scrambled to his feet and bolted for the house. The men stepped out of the car, moving in perfect unison, like puppets following a command. John's military instincts screamed at him. These weren't human agents. Reaching the front door, he yanked it open and slammed it behind him. Ziara, we got a problem. She was already standing in the hallway, her forearms flexed, eyes glowing bright. I know, she said. They have come for me. John's mind raced. Why? Who the hell are they? Ziara didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed John's wrist. Her grip was like steel. We must leave. Now. John barely had time to react before she pulled him forward. The next thing he knew, they were crashing through the back door. On the run. Ziara moved inhumanly fast. John had seen trained soldiers, Olympic runners, even enhanced fighters in the military. Nothing moved like her. She leaped over the backyard fence, still holding onto him, her grip unbreakable. John barely had time to get his footing before she pulled him toward an alley. "Slow down," he gasped. "We cannot," Zahra said. "They will not stop." Behind them, a loud humming sound filled the air. John turned his head. The men were coming. But they weren't running. They were gliding. Their feet barely touched the ground as they moved, like ghosts phasing through reality. And their eyes, those cold, glowing blue eyes, were locked onto him. "Zahra," John growled. "You better start explaining before I—" A pulse of energy blasted past them, striking a dumpster and melting it into a puddle of liquid metal. John swallowed hard. "Okay, forget explaining. Just keep running. Who is she?" After what felt like an eternity of sprinting through back streets and cutting through alleys, Zahra finally stopped behind an abandoned warehouse. John doubled over, catching his breath. "You want to tell me what the hell is going on?" Zahra scanned the area, then turned to face him. "I was not assigned to you by accident," she said. "You were chosen." John's heartbeat slowed. "Chosen for what?" Zahra hesitated. Then she spoke words that made his blood turn cold. "Because you are one of the last humans who can still fight back." John stared at her. "The government didn't send me to protect you," Zahra continued. "They sent me because you are a threat to them." The world around John suddenly felt heavier. "To them," he echoed. "Who the hell are they?" Zahra's glowing blue eyes flickered. "The ones who are already here." A sudden escape. John Carter had been in dangerous situations before. Ambushes, firefights, and high-risk missions during his military years. But nothing compared to this. Because this time, he didn't even know who or what he was fighting. The men in black were not human. That much was obvious now. Their unnatural movements, the eerie way they glided instead of ran, and their energy-based weapons, all of it screamed not from Earth. And now, he was running for his life with an alien maid who had just told him he was a threat to them. What the hell was happening? No more running. John and Zahra crouched in the shadows behind the abandoned warehouse. The area smelled like rust and old oil. "We need answers, now," John whispered harshly. "Who are they? What do they want with you? And why am I involved?" Zahra's blue eyes flickered. "They are infiltrators. They have been among your kind for years, hiding in secret. The government is aware but cannot stop them." John's jaw tightened. "And you? What are you?" Zahra hesitated. Then she said, "An experiment." John exhaled sharply. "Not the answer I was hoping for." Zahra continued, her voice calm despite their situation. "I was created to bond with a human, one strong enough to resist them. But the project was shut down. I am the last of my kind." John processed that. "You were supposed to be. What? A weapon? A protector?" Zahra nodded. "Both." John rubbed his temples. "Okay, great. You're a secret government experiment, and these guys want you dead. But why am I caught in the middle of this?" "You were not meant to be," Zahra said. "I was assigned to you by mistake. They were expecting me to be terminated before I could activate." John's blood ran cold. "Wait, you mean they wanted you destroyed?" Zahra's gaze was unreadable. "Yes, but now they know I am active, and that I have bonded with you." John swallowed. "Bonded? Your presence awakened parts of my programming," Zahra said. "I am now linked to you. That is why they want you eliminated as well." John muttered a curse under his breath. "So what now?" Zahra's glowing blue eyes suddenly sharpened. "They are coming." The warehouse standoff. Before John could react, a low humming filled the air. He turned his head slowly. The black-suited men were floating above the street. Their feet hovered inches above the pavement, their bodies unnaturally still. Their eyes, glowing with cold blue light, locked onto him and Zahra. "Surrender the unit, One of them said in a voice that didn't sound human, "And you will be spared." John's hands clenched into fists. "Yeah, I don't believe you." The infiltrators raised their energy weapons. "You have 10 seconds." John's mind raced. He was unarmed, outnumbered, but he wasn't defenseless. He glanced at Sarah. "You got a plan." She stepped forward, her forearms shifting, plates of her jumpsuit retracting to reveal hidden energy blades. The weapons extended from her forearms, crackling with blue light. "We fight." John grinned despite himself. "I like the way you think." The infiltrators fired first. A blast of blue energy tore through the warehouse walls. Sparks and metal shards rained down as John and Ziara dove in opposite directions. John rolled behind a stack of crates while Ziara charged straight at them. She moved like liquid shadow, too fast for human eyes to track. Her energy blades slashed through the air, slicing through one of the infiltrators before he could react. John heard a metallic screech, not a human scream. The infiltrator fell apart like a machine breaking down. Not human. Not even close. Another energy blast streaked toward John. He ducked just in time, feeling the heat singe past his ear. Damn it. He needed a weapon. His eyes darted across the warehouse. Then he spotted it. A rusted metal pipe, about 3 feet long. Not much, but better than nothing. John grabbed the pipe and rushed forward. Ziara was already dismantling the second infiltrator. Her blades cut through its arm, revealing wires and artificial muscle underneath. The thing didn't even flinch. It just turned its head toward her and lunged. John didn't hesitate. He swung the pipe as hard as he could, straight into the infiltrator's head. Cracky! The impact sent a visible shockwave through the thing's skull. It staggered, twitching violently. Ziara didn't miss the opportunity. She spun and drove her blade into its chest. The infiltrator let out a distorted mechanical hiss before collapsing in a heap of sparks and twitching limbs. Silence filled the warehouse. Then a voice. Distorted, cold, echoed from behind them. "You should not have done that." John's stomach clenched. More were coming. The final escape. Ziara grabbed John's wrist. "We must leave." John wiped the sweat from his brow. "Yeah. No argument here." They sprinted out of the warehouse, dodging through alleyways and side streets. Behind them, shadows moved. The infiltrators were following. "They won't stop, will they?" John asked as they ran. "No," Ziara said. "Not until we are dead." John exhaled. Fantastic. They kept running, kept moving, kept surviving. But one thing was clear now. This wasn't just about a runaway alien maid anymore. This was war. And John Carter was right in the middle of it. The truth about Ziara. John Carter had seen combat before. He had fought in deserts, jungles, and urban war zones. But this was something different. He wasn't just fighting enemies. He was fighting something that wasn't human. Ziara pulled him through the dark alleys, moving so fast that John had trouble keeping up. Behind them, the inhuman infiltrators pursued without making a sound. Their glowing blue eyes cut through the shadows like headlights, scanning, tracking. John's mind raced as he ran. The government gave him an alien maid, and now they wanted her dead. The men in black were not human. They were something else, and Ziara had just told him that he was one of the last humans who could fight back. Fight back against what? They turned a corner, and Ziara suddenly pulled him into a side door. They were inside an abandoned subway station. The air was cold, filled with the scent of rust and damp concrete. Ziara pressed John against the wall. "Be silent." John's breathing was heavy. He nodded. They waited. Outside, footsteps hovered above the pavement. Not the normal sound of walking. More like a humming vibration. The infiltrators were floating again. John tightened his grip on the metal pipe he still held. Not much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the footsteps faded, Ziara exhaled. They have lost our trail. For now. John let out a breath. For now isn't good enough. You need to tell me everything. Right now. She looked at him, her blue eyes glowing softly in the dark. Then she finally spoke. The experiment. The government created me, Jera said. Not as a maid, but as a weapon. A new kind of protector. John leaned back against the wall, his heart still racing. A protector against what? She hesitated. Then, against the alien infiltration. John narrowed his eyes. You mean those things chasing us? She nodded. They are not human. They mimic human form, but they are something else. Something old. They have been here for decades, slowly replacing key figures. Politicians, generals, corporate leaders. John rubbed his face. Replaced. You're telling me aliens have been running the world? Not fully, Jera said. Not yet. The infiltration is slow, careful. They do not conquer through war. They assimilate. John felt a chill crawl down his spine. And the government knows. Ziara nodded. Yes, and they created me as a countermeasure. A prototype of a new kind of soldier. A warrior designed to bond with a human host. To protect and fight alongside them. John exhaled. And that host was supposed to be me. No. Ziara shook her head. I was never supposed to activate. John froze. What? Ziara's voice was calm. The project was shut down before it could begin. The infiltrators learned about me. They made sure the program was terminated. Every other prototype was destroyed. John felt his stomach tighten. And you. I was decommissioned, placed into an inactive state, but somehow I was sent to you. John frowned. By accident. Ziara looked away. I do not believe in accidents. John exhaled sharply. So, the moment you showed up at my house, they knew. Yes, Ziara said. And now, they want to eliminate both of us. The first bond. John paced back and forth in the subway tunnel. His mind was spinning. So let me get this straight, he muttered. I was never supposed to get you. You were never supposed to activate. But now that you have, these things think I'm a threat because I'm bonded to you. Ziara nodded. Yes, the bond is not physical. It is neurological. The moment I activated in your presence, our connection was formed. Your mind is linked to mine. That is why I cannot leave you. John clenched his jaw. What happens if I leave? Ziara hesitated. Then she said, I would die. John froze. His chest tightened. You're serious? Yes, she said simply. I was designed to synchronize with a human host. Without that link, my systems will shut down permanently. It is an irreversible process. John rubbed his forehead. Great. So now I've got an alien maid who's also a combat eye, a bunch of inhuman assassins chasing me, and apparently I'm stuck in this mess whether I like it or not. Ziara tilted her head. Correct. John sighed. Fantastic. No turning back. For a long moment, they sat in silence. John stared at the cracked subway walls, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on him. His normal life. Gone. His quiet existence. Over. This was war. And he was in the middle of it. Finally, he looked at Ziara. So, what do we do now? She met his gaze. We fight. John chuckled dryly. You say that like it's an easy thing. It is not easy, Ziara said. But it is necessary. You are a soldier. You understand what must be done. John shook his head. Lady, I don't even know what we're up against. Ziara stepped closer. Then we find out. John sighed. He didn't like this. He didn't want this. But the truth was clear. If they ran, they would be hunted. If they hid, they would be found. The only way out was through. John looked at Ziara. All right. You're the advanced war machine. Where do we start? Ziara's glowing blue eyes focused. We need weapons. Allies. and information. John smirked. So basically, everything we don't have. Ziara didn't hesitate. Yet. John exhaled. All right, let's get to work. And with that, their war officially began. The real threat. John Carter had always thought of himself as a survivor. He had fought through war zones, made it through missions where others didn't, and built a life after the military. But now, he wasn't sure if survival was an option anymore. The government had sent him an alien maid, but she wasn't a maid. She was a weapon. And the moment she bonded with him, he became a target. The enemy wasn't human. They were something else, something hiding in plain sight. And now, he and Zara had no choice but to fight back. On the move. The abandoned subway station wasn't safe for long. Zara had confirmed it. The infiltrators could track them. They leave behind an energy signature when they scan an area, she explained. It fades after a few hours, but if we stay here too long, they will pinpoint our location. John exhaled. So what? We just keep running forever? No, Zara said. We prepare. John leaned against the cold concrete wall. And how do we do that? Zara's glowing blue eyes flickered. We need weapons, resources, and information. John sighed. Right. The three things we don't have. Zara stepped forward. I know where we can get them. John narrowed his eyes. Oh, great. Lem guess. Another top-secret government facility filled with killers. Zara didn't react. No. A contact. Someone who was part of the original project that created me. If he is still alive, he can help us. John crossed his arms. And where is this guy? Zara's voice was calm. Underground. Off the grid. But I can find him. John let out a slow breath. All right. Lead the way. A visit to the underworld. They made their way through the abandoned tunnels, moving fast. The deeper they went, the more it felt like stepping into a different world. The air was damp, the walls cracked with age. John wasn't sure how Zara knew where to go, but she led them with absolute certainty. Finally, they emerged in a part of the city John had never seen before. The streets were dark, lined with flickering neon signs and smoke-filled alleyways. This was the underbelly of society, a place where the government turned a blind eye. John recognized it instantly. He had seen places like this in war zones, black markets, hidden trade hubs, places where people disappeared. Your guy is down here, John muttered. Zara nodded. Yes, stay close. They moved through the crowd. John noticed something odd. The people here were different. Some looked like normal citizens. Others had strange, unnatural features. Are some of these people? Yes, Zara said. Not all aliens are infiltrators. Some are refugees. Others are waiting. John frowned. Waiting for what? Zara didn't answer. Then she stopped in front of a rusty metal door covered in old stickers and graffiti. She knocked 3 times in a precise rhythm. A slot in the door slid open. A pair of glowing red eyes stared out. You shouldn't be here, a deep voice said. We need information, Zara replied. The voice growled. And what makes you think I want to give it? Zara's expression didn't change. Because I am the last of the Protector Project. Silence. Then, the door unlocked. Get inside. Quickly. The hidden truth. The man inside was not fully human. His arms were mechanical. His face was scared, half of it replaced with cybernetic implants. His red eyes scanned them instantly, analyzing them. John instinctively tensed, but Zara showed no fear. You're still alive, she said. The man smirked. Barely. The government tried to clean up the project. I was one of the few who escaped. John stepped forward. Who the hell are you? The man eyed him. Name's Rogan. I was part of the research team that built her. He nodded at Zara. Didn't think I'd ever see one of you activated. John crossed his arms. Yeah, well, thanks to a clerical error, here we are. Rogan laughed dryly. Not an error. Someone sent her to you on purpose. John stiffened. What? Rogan leaned back against his desk. Think about it. Zara was supposed to be destroyed. The program was shut down years ago. But somehow she gets delivered to you. A military veteran, someone with combat experience. John exhaled. You're saying this was planned? Rogan nodded. And not by the government. Someone else is pulling strings. Ziara's expression remained unreadable. Do you have the information we need? Rogan sighed. Yeah. And you're not gonna like it. He tapped on a console, and a holographic map appeared in the air. It showed a facility deep in the mountains, one heavily fortified, surrounded by security drones and turrets. This is where they're making the next phase of infiltrators, Rogan said. They're perfecting them, making them indistinguishable from humans. John felt a chill. And when they succeed, Rogan's face darkened. Then, humanity won't even realize it's been conquered. Silence filled the room. John clenched his fists. Then we destroy it. Rogan looked at him like he was insane. You're talking about breaking into a high-security alien facility. Just the two of you. Ziara's blue eyes glowed brighter. We are not alone. John frowned. We're not. Ziara turned toward the door. Others have been waiting. Now, they will join us. Before John could ask what she meant, the door opened. Figures stepped inside. Humans and aliens, some carrying weapons, others with cybernetic enhancements. John's stomach tightened. A resistance. A war was coming. And he had just been drafted. Fighting back. John Carter never imagined he'd be standing in a room filled with aliens, cyborgs, and outcasts, all planning to take on an enemy that most of humanity didn't even know existed. But here he was, a former soldier, now bonded to an experimental protector, and at the center of a war that had been happening in the shadows for decades. The infiltrators were getting stronger. They had a facility where they were perfecting themselves. Soon, they'd be indistinguishable from real humans. By the time the world noticed, it would be too late. So John and Zara had one option: hit them first. The resistance. The room was dimly lit, filled with people who didn't belong anywhere else. Some were ex-military like John. Others were ex-scientists, hackers, or underground rebels. A few weren't even human. Aliens who had escaped the infiltrators' grasp. Rogan, the ex-government scientist who once worked on the Protector Project, stood in front of a holographic map showing the infiltrator facility deep in the mountains. This place is a fortress, he said, pointing at several defense towers and guard patrol routes. Drones, turrets, security forces, you name it, they've got it. John crossed his arms. And we're supposed to break in there with what exactly? Hope and a good attitude. Rogan smirked. Nah, we've got firepower. He pressed a button on a console. Behind him, a section of the wall slid open, revealing the hidden weapons cache. John's eyes widened. Now we're talking. Ziara stepped forward, analyzing the advanced energy rifles, explosives, and combat gear. This will improve our odds. Not by much, a gruff voice muttered. John turned to see a towering figure step forward. He was human, mostly. Cybernetic implants covered his arms and part of his face. His right eye glowed red. Name's Jackson, he said. Ex-military, ex-weapons specialist, and ex-alive, if the government had its way. John recognized the look in Jackson's eyes. A soldier who had been through hell and came back meaner. We go in quiet, Jackson continued. Plant charges at their power core. Blow the place sky high. John nodded. Simple plan. Jackson grinned. Yeah, plans only go to hell when they get complicated. The infiltration. The night air was cold as John, and the team moved through the dense forest, approaching the facility. Zara was at his side, her glowing blue eyes tanning every movement in the darkness. "We are being watched," she whispered. John tightened his grip on his rifle. "How many?" Ziara tilted her head slightly, then whispered back, "At least 6, hidden along the treetops." Unnatural movement. John exhaled. "Great. They got scouts." Jackson, ahead of them, raised a hand. A signal to stop. "Change of plans," Jackson muttered. "We need to take out those scouts quietly, or this whole mission is over before it starts." John looked at Ziara. "You up for it?" he asked. Ziara didn't answer. She vanished. 1 second she was beside him. The next, she was gone. John barely heard a sound, just a whisper of movement in the trees. Then, thud, a body dropped to the ground ahead of them. Another. In less than a minute, all 6 enemy scouts had been silently eliminated. Ziara reappeared beside him, completely calm. "Done." Jackson blinked. "Well, Dan." John just grinned. "Yeah, she does that." Inside the beast, they'd reached the facility's outer fence, a tall, reinforced metal wall topped with electrified wires. "We cut power here," Rogan whispered, pointing to a control box hidden under camouflage netting. "That'll disable the outer defenses for 5 minutes, long enough for us to breach." Jackson moved forward, pulled a small EMP charge from his belt, and stuck it to the panel. "Everyone ready?" he asked. John checked his rifle. Ziara's energy blades flickered to life. The rest of the team nodded. Jackson smirked. "Good. Let's make some noise." Click. The EMP detonated with a low hiss, and the entire section of the fence went dark. "Move," John ordered. They climbed through the opening, slipping past the now disabled security turrets. Inside, the facility was a cold steel labyrinth, dimly lit and humming with hidden power. Ziara led the way. "We must move quickly. They will detect us soon." "Then let's not waste time," John said. They pushed forward, weaving through the industrial hallways. Infiltrator guards patrolled in eerie silence, their glowing blue eyes cutting through the shadows. One turned. Too late. Jackson's silenced pistol fired, dropping the guard instantly. Ziara and John moved like ghosts, dispatching enemies with precise efficiency. So far, so good. But John knew it was too easy. And he was right. Because the moment they reached the power core, an alarm blared through the facility. They had been waiting for them. "The battle begins." "Shit," Jackson cursed. "They knew we were coming." From the far corridor, dozens of infiltrators emerged, more than they had expected. John raised his rifle and fired. The first infiltrator went down, but the rest kept coming. "Hold the line," John shouted. Ziara moved like lightning, slicing through enemies with her energy blades. Sparks flew as infiltrators collapsed, revealing mechanical cores beneath their synthetic skin. Jackson and the others unleashed hell, gunfire roaring through the hall. But the infiltrators weren't stopping. John gritted his teeth. They were outnumbered. Then something changed. Ziara stopped moving. John saw it. Her body trembled for a moment, and her glowing blue eyes flickered. "Ziara," he called. She didn't respond. Then she collapsed. John's heart lurched. He ran to her side, firing wildly at the advancing infiltrators. "Ziara, talk to me," he shouted. Her voice was faint. "They are trying to take control of my systems." John's eyes widened. They were hacking her. Rogan shouted from the console. "They're sending a remote signal. If we don't shut it down, they'll override her completely." John clenched his fists. They were running out of time. And Ziara, his only real chance at surviving this fight, was slipping away. A new beginning. John Carter had never felt fear like this before. Not in war. Not in combat. Not even when he had faced death head-on. But now he watched Ziara, his only real ally, his only hope, collapse at his feet. Her glowing blue eyes flickered, her body convulsing as the infiltrators hijacked her systems. They were shutting her down, turning her against him. And if that happened, she wouldn't just die. She'd become one of them. John. Zyra's voice was faint, distorted. They are inside my mind. John gritted his teeth, turning to Rogan. Tell me how to stop it. Rogan's fingers flew over the console. They're sending a remote override signal from the core. If we don't cut it, they'll turn her into one of them in less than 60 seconds. John turned toward the energy core at the center of the room, a massive, pulsating tower of glowing blue light, humming with raw power. Above it, suspended in thick cables, was a figure. Not just any infiltrator, a perfected one. Its body was sleek, its synthetic skin flawless, its eyes glowing like twin suns. It stared down at John and the others with an expression that was eerily human. You cannot stop what has already begun, it said. Its voice was smooth, emotionless, yet terrifyingly confident. She belongs to us now. John raised his rifle. Like hell she does. The final stand. The room exploded into chaos. Infiltrators swarmed in, their mechanical limbs moving with inhuman precision. Gunfire roared, energy weapons sizzled, and the team fought with everything they had. Jackson tore through enemies with his heavy-duty shotgun, blasting them apart with sheer brute force. Rogan stayed at the console, desperately trying to shut down the override. John fought his way toward the core. He cut through the chaos, dodging energy blasts, smashing his rifle into an infiltrator's skull, then grabbing a grenade from his belt. You like taking over mines, he growled. Try taking over this. He threw the grenade, a high-impact EMP charge, straight into the energy core. Boom! The blast sent a shockwave through the facility. For a split second, everything went silent. Then, the infiltrators began to glitch. Their movements became erratic, their bodies jerking like puppets with cut strings. And Zyra, she gasped. Her glowing blue eyes flickered back to life. John ran to her, gripping her shoulders. Zyra, are you with me? She blinked, then focused on him. Yes, she whispered. Then her voice hardened. And I am ready to end this. The fall of the facility. The perfected infiltrator ripped itself free from the cables, landing in front of them. You fight against the inevitable, it said, stepping forward. We are the future. Humanity is obsolete. John smirked. Yeah. Then why are you losing? Zyra moved first. She leaped through the air, energy blades glowing like blue fire. The infiltrator blocked her strike, its strength equal to hers. They clashed, a battle of pure speed and power. John didn't hesitate. While they fought, he rushed toward the console. Rogan, what's our exit plan? He shouted. Rogan pointed at the self-destruct panel. That's the only plan. John sighed. Of course it is. Jackson covered them, blasting infiltrators left and right. Whatever you're gonna do it fast. John slammed his fist on the panel. A robotic voice spoke over the intercom. Facility self-destruct activated. Evacuate immediately. John turned back. Zyra, time to go. Zyra dodged an attack, spinning and stabbing the perfected infiltrator through the chest. Sparks erupted from its body, but it did not die. Instead, it grinned. This is only the beginning. Then, it lunged at John. John had half a second to react, but Zyra was faster. She threw herself in front of him, taking the full impact. Zyra, John yelled. She staggered, but she was still standing. And the infiltrator. It was too close now. John grabbed his last grenade, yanked the pin, and shoved it straight into the infiltrator's chest. You're right, he said. This is the beginning. Just not for you. The grenade detonated. The infiltrator disintegrated in a blast of blue energy. Zyra turned to John, eyes wide. You are reckless, she said. John smirked. And you love it. She didn't deny it. A new war. They ran. The facility collapsed behind them, flames and smoke rising into the night sky. By the time they reached the forest, it was gone. Jackson let out a breath. Well, that was insane. Rogan wiped the sweat from his face. Yeah, and we just pissed off something way bigger than us. John looked at Zaira. Is it over? She shook her head. No, this was only one of many facilities. The infiltrators are still out there. John clenched his fists. Then we fight. Zaira nodded. Together. John smirked. Dan right. Above them, the night sky stretched endlessly. Somewhere out there, more battles awaited. But John Carter, he wasn't running anymore. This was just the beginning.